Welcome to the Entrepreneurial CEO Podcast, where we dive into the real stories behind building and scaling a business. Each episode, we sit down with CEOs, founders, and leaders to uncover hard-won lessons in leadership, systems, and team building. Listen in each week to learn directly from real business leaders who have been in your shoes, had success, made the mistakes, and all of the messiness that comes with building a business. If you're ready to learn from real-world leaders and gain insights you can apply today, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Everyone, welcome back to the show. Joe, thanks so much for being here, man.
Hey, appreciate you having me, Andrew. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So everybody, today's guest is Joe Koufman, founder and CEO of Setup. They're a marketing matchmaker. It's been connecting brands like Home Depot, Great Clips, Brooks Running, NCR, and a lot more with the perfect agencies since 2014. Joe spent over 20 years leading marketing and business development at firms like Engage and Knowledge Storm before launching Setup in Atlanta. And he's also the president-elect of AMA Atlanta and an EO member for many years. Joe, thanks so much for being here, man. Really appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you having me, Andrew. That's a great intro. I appreciate that.
Of course. So before we jump into all my questions, maybe just if you have any additional details for the audience about you or the business.
Sure. So, I started the company 11 years ago, but I spent 6 years running business development and marketing for an agency called Engage. And we sold the company to Publicis Group. We were 43 million in revenue when we sold. And most of that revenue came from clients that I'd brought into the agency. And so I took that experience and decided to start what is now Setup to connect brands, like you mentioned, some mostly medium to large size companies that are usually either deficient in capacity within the marketing team to do all of the things they'd like to accomplish, or capability. They might be good at these 10 things in marketing, but there may be 2 or 3 other things they're not so good at. And so they would rely on an agency to support them. And so we work with the client to help them write a really detailed brief and then connect them with 3 or 4 agencies that are all very qualified to solve that problem that we just outlined with them.
That's pretty. How did you come across that as a need, as a pain point in the market?
Yeah. Well, if you Google an agency, if you're looking for a PR firm or social media or content or TV advertising agency or something, you'll get thousands and thousands and thousands of results. And it's really hard to parse through those and decide which agencies are really good and not good. And so we put each agency that we work with through a really rigorous vetting process to understand what they're great at. Because if you ask an agency what they're good at, sometimes they'll say everything. And we all know that they're not probably good at everything. And so we put them through this vetting process to really understand what makes them special and unique. But to your question about need, clients often are a little bit limited by their network. They might know of a couple of agencies that they worked with in the past, but things change rapidly, and an agency that was good for you 3 or 4 years ago might not still be good for you now. Or they'll ask their friends at another company that are in marketing, who do you use? But the agency that's really good for Goodyear Tire might not be good for Brooks Running, as an example. And so we solve a real problem, which is, how do you find really qualified agencies that can fill either those capacity or capability gaps?
That's an interesting model. And so you have to map out the industry and really understand who the players are in the space, I imagine, and understand their strengths or weaknesses, opportunities, capabilities, and then match them accordingly.
Yeah. So we spend a lot of time with the agencies up front before there's ever a need from a client, so that we really understand what makes that agency so, different, special, and unique, like I said. Then we spend a lot of time talking to the client about where their pain points are. Hey, you need help in these areas. So, for example, one of the ways that we build relationships with brands is we go to industry trade shows where we walk the floor of the trade show, and usually the head of marketing is there making sure that the booth is set up okay and making sure that the salespeople are selling to the customers at the trade show. And then they're twiddling their thumbs a little because they've already, made sure that the booth is set up okay. And so they're often very open to just having a conversation right there on the trade show floor at their booth about, and our pitch to them is not, let me sell you an agency or let me sell you some agency services. Our pitch to them is, we can connect you with agencies that can help solve marketing problems for you. And by the way, it doesn't cost you a thing because the agencies pay us a monthly retainer to connect with potential clients. So our model is that the client pays nothing, but we help them find qualified agencies. And from there, if we introduce them to 3 or 4 agencies, the client controls which one of the agencies they like the most and which one they think is the best for their team. So the client gets an opportunity to be introduced to 3 or 4 really qualified agencies and then choose the one with which they've got the best chemistry.
Yep.
And from the agency standpoint, they get an opportunity to talk to a client that has an actual need for their services. And these are typically clients that the agency wouldn't have run into on their own. They're clients that we either have or are building new relationships with.
Yeah. I mean, if you're an agency, who wouldn't gladly pay for the opportunity to go speak with Brooks Running or Great Clips or any of these huge brands? That's an opportunity that is tough to come by. So I can definitely see how that's attractive.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So you built this from the ground up, right? You built this from the ground up. Now you've got a team in place. You guys have grown the business. Talk about those early days. What were some of the challenges getting the momentum and getting traction?
Well, as you know, Andrew, being an entrepreneur is super easy. So it was all a breeze.
Piece of cake.
Then. No, early on, I hired my first employee before I even had my first contract from an agency. And I did that because I knew that I wanted to build a company and not a personal consultancy. And I knew that I was going to need resources and help from others. And so, I started the company in 2014. About 5 years in, talk about like a challenge. 5 years in, we got a cease and desist letter from a big giant law firm that represented their client that had a trademark on some portion of our original company name. And the letter said, we think you should change the name of your company that you've been spending 5 years building equity in that name.
Yeah.
And so we tried to fight it, and we went back and forth with attorneys. And I talked to a litigator who said, it's going to cost you $250,000, $300,000 to fight this. And I give you a 10% chance of winning. And he's like, look, I'm a litigator. I get paid to litigate. I don't care. Like, if you want to hire us to do that, we'll do it. But he said, if it was me, I would just rebrand your company.
That's tough.
So, so I hired one of the agencies with which we worked that was in our collective, literally paid them money to bring us through a rebrand process. And we ended up with the name Setup and the tagline Marketing Matchmakers, because truly, my bio reads that there are 3 couples who have married as a result of my introductions. It's true. They're not all still married, but I'm not a marriage counselor.
Yeah, that's not your problem. Yeah.
Nope. They liked each other enough. All 3 couples had 2 kids, and they all, But to me, I always loved the connecting people together. I always loved the idea of matchmaking, but I like business matchmaking. Personal matchmaking is fun too, but really business matchmaking. And I'm actually working on my first book. I've been writing this book. Hopefully it will be out by the end of this year, by the end of 2025. It's called The Connector's Compass. And it's about making meaningful connections with other people and also making meaningful connections for other people.
That's awesome. Let's talk about, it's been since 2014. when you think about the business now, what keeps you up at night now? What are the challenges that you're going through present day?
Well, we're kind of like a marketplace with two sides of the marketplace, right? So for us, the brands that need agency support are the fuel that fuels our machine, right? So we're constantly looking for brands that need help finding the right agency, but we're also looking for fantastic agencies that need business development support.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we have more agencies than we have opportunities to feed them, and sometimes we have more opportunities and not enough agencies to supply them.
Yeah.
But generally, we do a pretty good job of trying to, have the right balance of agencies and brands and opportunities. But when I think about scale, we could add more agencies and then go pursue more opportunities from brands, and we could add more opportunities and then add more agencies. And so I'm always thinking about what's that right balance between the number of opportunities that we find and source from brands and then the agencies to support them.
Okay. And I just think, is that a challenge because there's so many agencies? I mean, is it hard to?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a busy landscape.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we do our agency assessment process. It takes about a month for us to complete. And part of that process, we talk to 3 groups of clients for the agency. One is we talk to past clients. They're the most honest. They'll tell you what they loved about working with the agency and also what they didn't love about working with the agency. We talk to current clients who will say, this is what I love about my agency, and also I wish they did these other things differently or better. But we also talk to clients that didn't select the agency in a competitive process, like a pitch. And that's fascinating too. Why did you pick the other guys? Was there something deficient about the agency, that you didn't pick? Was there something they could have done differently? Whatever. But that feedback is invaluable for the agencies to hear from those 3 groups of clients. And then we also survey key staff within the agency. And part of what we're looking for is how self-aware is this agency? Does the feedback from the clients match what the actual staff thinks of their own strengths and weaknesses? And that whole process, the purpose of that is to weed through to know which agencies are really great and which agencies are not. And it's not like that process is pass-fail. We typically don't embark on that process unless we have a really good feel for this agency is one that we really want to work with. We intentionally have a pretty diverse collective of agencies because the kinds of opportunities that clients bring to us are diverse. Sometimes they need just media planning in mind. Sometimes they need just content creation. Sometimes they need all of, everything. Sometimes they need a web design and development agency. And so we want to have a variety of different kinds of agencies so that when the client needs X, we know we have some agencies that are really good at the thing that they, whatever X is.
That makes sense. And so you're thinking about, that balance between the two sides of the marketplace and scale. I mean, when you think about the next 12, 24, 36 months, where are you now and where would you like to see setup go?
Yeah. Well, we've done an annual marketing relationship survey for the last 7. This will be our 7th year. And every year, one of the major publications publishes it. Ad Age or Adweek or Fast Company published it. And who else? Media Post just published last year's. I want us to be seen as the expert on the agency-client relationship, and we are. We understand that relationship better than anybody in the country. I venture to say, and we want to continue to be known as the go-to resource when brands need agency support. So that's what I'm looking to grow and scale over time. Is I want us to be not just have the reputation, but be the go-to resource where people come to us because they know we're the ones that can help them find the right agency to support them.
Okay. Let's talk about the internal workings of setup for a moment. How big is the team today?
6 full-time and 2 part-time.
Okay.
And most of them live here in Atlanta, but we have a couple, remote that live elsewhere. And we are in the office in person 2 days a week.
There you go.
And then remote the other days, and we found a really good cadence and balance of, the days that we're not in the office. We have a daily stand-up at 9:31 a.m. It's at an odd time on purpose so that everybody remembers it. But we're a really close-knit, well-connected team, and we've really benefited from the fact that we don't need a huge staff to do what we do. It's been great.
Like we were saying on the pre-show, I love that. If you can grow a business, scale a business, and keep your costs down, keep your overhead down, keep the number of employees down, it just limits complexity and obviously costs and improves your margin. There's so many benefits to it.
Yeah.
So within the team, we always talk about accountability and process and systems here. What do you use? How do you go about ensuring accountability as you grow and you're working with, the two sides of the marketplace?
Yeah, well, it's a small enough team that everybody has to pull their weight, and we're a very purpose-driven and purpose-focused company. We believe in what we call PVTV, purpose, vision, tenets, and values. So our purpose is to help unlock the power of human connections. Our vision is to help marketers thrive by bringing them together with the best people and resources. Our vision, purpose, vision, our tenets, are to stay top of mind with marketers, to make meaningful connections, and to maintain operational excellence. And our values are honorable, approachable, insightful, tenacious, and innovative. And to your question, we will hire based on values and we will fire based on values. If somebody breaks one of those values, then they're not part of this team anymore. If we're looking to hire a new person, they need to be honorable, approachable, insightful, tenacious, and innovative. And so it took us some effort to come up with our PVTV, purpose, vision, tenets, and values, but we hold those dear, and those are very important to us. And I will say, we have fun along the way. Like this is not a massive corporate kind of environment, but accountability is built into the machine. We also run a program that is really cool. It's called The Great Game of Business. There's a book written by a guy named Jack Stack. And basically with The Great Game of Business, the idea is that you distill your business into one or two or three, but usually 2 key metrics that are the most important metrics for the business. And it's the great game of business because everybody on the team knows the score. And everybody on the team knows their ability to contribute to improve the score or help the score. And so we actually have a kind of a profit sharing program based on the great game of business. We call it the great game of setup. And if my whole team can tell you how many introductions we've made between brands and agencies each month, that's one of our key metrics, and they can tell you what our profit is. So we're very transparent with the entire team about our finances. Nobody has to worry that we're going to go out of business or that we're running out of money or something, because the finances are all very transparent. We think our team are adults and they can take that information and hold it confidential, and but then also feel confident that we're doing what we should be doing with the business.
Yeah.
And then particularly those introductions and knowing how many introductions we make, like I said, that's the fuel that fuels our machine. So we measure very closely how many introductions we're making. We've made over 1,300 introductions between brands and agencies in 11 years. That's roughly 120 per year, or roughly 10 per month for a very long time, 11 years.
Hi, if you're a CEO out there who's struggling with focus for your company, aligning your team, accountability, if you're struggling with execution, connecting the dots from where you're at to where you want to be, we've got a great program for you here at MAP. My name's Michael Cato. I'm the CEO. Most importantly, I was a client for 15 years, sold my company to a public company, and then bought MAP so that we can help other entrepreneurs with this specific problem. We're a 60-year-old company. We've worked with 170,000 individual executives and CEOs. We've worked with 15,000 organizations. This is what we do. Click the link below to learn a little bit more about how people just like you, CEOs, have transformed their business and ultimately transformed their life by running through the MAP system.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I like that a lot. So we, at MAP, we use a very similar structure called the vital factors, right? It's the vital, there's two concepts, vital factor metrics, which are very similar to those two, whether it's 2 metrics or 3 or 5 that are critical, right? It's like follows the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, where you might be tracking 100, but there's only a few that really matter for the business. And so you want to keep a close eye on those. And then those break down into, for each individual, you have goals. What are the vital factor goals? What are those things that you should be doing that are really going to move the needle towards those metrics that were, the vital factor metrics that are important to the business? And for you, it could be those introductions or EBITDA or profit. Maybe there's something else. And so, it's a very similar structure.
Well, to that point, Andrew, with introductions is a good example. My business development team, they know they can directly impact introductions. They can go out and meet a brand and talk to a CMO, a chief marketing officer at a company, and talk to them about agencies, and then we can make introductions for them. But even like my marketing person, my marketing manager, she's thinking when she's writing a blog post, if I can make this blog post a little bit better, maybe I can attract one more brand that needs agency support, or maybe one more agency that would be interested in working with us on an ongoing basis. And with profit, because everybody's bonus based on profit, when my team travels somewhere, they don't stay at Four Seasons Hotel. They choose to stay at a Best Western, Holiday Inn Express or something. They choose to stay at a less expensive hotel, and they choose to book a less expensive flight because they realize that if we can achieve certain profit goals for the month, quarter, and year, then they're going to get bonus based on that. And so it makes all of the team act and feel like owners of the business.
Yeah. You want to incentivize the actions that you want people to take, right? And I think that's very, very smart.
Thank you.
Now, they have incentive plans that guide them towards the right decision making, but like on a monthly basis or an annual or quarterly, are you setting those specific, like, hey guys, we need Tom, I need 10 introductions out of you, or we need 4 new clients this month, or how do you have those things structured?
It's not that specific, but we do annual planning, and we certainly set targets for the year. But I mentioned a daily stand-up. A daily stand-up is literally, what did you work on yesterday?
Yeah.
What are you working on today? It's most important, not 20 things you're working on. What's the one most important thing you're working on today? And where are the roadblocks where somebody can help? And if there's a shout out or a win, you can give a shout out to somebody. And usually we give the shout outs in context to our values. So we might say, Andrew was really tenacious because he sent 3 extra emails and he got a response from the person he was really trying to get a response from. Or Andrew was really innovative because he came up with a new way for us to do this, do something.
Yeah.
And then we do a weekly huddle, and the huddle is more detailed, where you say, these are my top 3 priorities for the week. Here, what's something we should start doing, stop doing, continue doing? Are there what are we not talking about? It's a great question that we add to our weekly huddle. What are we not talking about? I once got a chance to have a conversation with the CEO of MailChimp, Ben Chestnut. Ben sold MailChimp to Intuit for $12 billion. Doing okay, right?
Yeah, that's all right.
He had a marketing agency, and he gave away all of his clients because he was working on this little email project, and he thought, this email project is going to be big. So MailChimp sold for $12 billion a couple of years ago, but I asked Ben what his superpower was. And his superpower, he said, I'm able to put the turd on the table. And I love that. addressing a difficult issue in a mature adult way and bringing up uncomfortable. So we always ask in that weekly huddle, what are we not talking about that we should be talking about?
Yeah. I like that a lot. That's really good. And I really like how you pull back you tie in the values with the recognition. I think that's really great. We do that. We have a monthly meeting. Our rhythms, we do, we have the weekly meetings, but the real key rhythm that we have is the monthly. It's a 4-hour monthly team meeting called Vital Factor Team Meeting, where we go through all the vital factor metrics, vital factor goals, but also the successes and issues of the business. So, hey guys, what's working? What's not working, right? What do we need to talk about that's not working? And then tying that into action items. Okay, that's not working. Who owns it? Mary, great. Mary, you own that. What are we going to do about it? And when is it going to get done? But we also do recognition. And I love the fact that you tie the recognition into the values. That's really great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so every week we do those shout outs and wins. So sometimes the shout out is a personal shout out. Sometimes it's just a win. Like, hey, for example, we're in the middle of a process with a $9 billion shoe company that needs our help finding an agency. And if a client is looking for something that's not in our collective of agencies, then they can actually pay for us to run a full our request for information and request for proposal process from start to finish. Usually takes 3 to 4 months. But in this case, the client pays us to run that process. When we do that, we don't get paid a penny by any agency. So there's no conflict of interest. I told you honorable is one of our very core values. So if the client is paying us to run an RFP process because they're looking for something very specific, like in this case, the big shoe company is not known for their athletic shoes, but they've launched an athletic shoe and they're looking for an agency with deep experience in that particular style of athletic shoe. And so that's not the kind of agency that's in our regular collective. And so we said to them, look, we'll help you find that agency, but you got to pay us and we'll run the process, and no agency will pay us a penny because the client's paying us to run the process. So it's been fun it helps us be better and more empathetic and curious by sitting with the client and helping them find and choose the right agency, and helping them when the final 3 or 4 agencies are pitching in the room, we're there with them to help them make that decision. And also we're out there working to find those brands that might need agency support. So we understand the agency side and their challenges and concerns, and we understand the client side. And that annual marketing relationship survey that I mentioned is all about the understanding that, that relationship between brands and agencies. The biggest and best brands in the world rely heavily on agencies to support them because they can't possibly
for sure
have every expert in every area of marketing on their team full time. And they can't possibly have a big enough team to do every single marketing initiative that they're trying to accomplish.
Right. Yeah. So you have a small team and a lot of tentacles out there, right? You work with a lot of agencies, a lot of brands. There's a lot of touch points. And within these, I don't know if you call them campaigns or initiatives or projects, however you label them, but I'm sure there's different touch points, milestones, and as I'm thinking through it, I'm like, what systems do you have in place to ensure that I'm sure, managing those relationships and ensuring that you're delivering the best quality service and product is paramount. So how are you measuring that to ensure there's no slippage as you're delivering, and also you're touching these agencies and maintaining relationships?
Well, a couple of different things. I'll talk a little bit about tools. I mean, we, back in the day, we had a different CRM and a different marketing automation tool, and we had a different outreach tool. And about 3 years ago, we consolidated it all into one marketing automation CRM and sales outreach tool. We happen to use HubSpot, but I think there's a bunch of really great ones out there. And it's been great for our business to have a single view of a client instead of looking at three different views and three different
Yeah.
systems, and not that don't talk to each other. But also within our business, we have to put tools and processes in place. So for example, we put together a questionnaire that we walk through with brands that might need our support. And we fill in as much as we can of the questionnaire based on information we can find on the internet, wherever else, right? Background on the company, background on the team, background on their technology stack that they're using. All those things are things we can often find. Then we ask the client to fill in whatever details we couldn't easily find. So tell me more about the need that's causing you to seek this agency support. Tell us about your current agency partners and what you like and don't like about them. Tell us about what your expectations are around budget. Like, what are you looking to spend to get the services that you want? What's the time frame? Who are the decision makers within the organization that are going to? So we put all of that questionnaire. We take that questionnaire and convert it into a brief. We send it back to the client and ask them to bless it. So, hey, we've captured all the detail about what you're trying to accomplish by hiring this agency. And now we've got a brief that you've approved. And then we use that brief and float it to a handful of agencies that are really qualified. And then we ask those agencies to give us a couple of bullet points about why this specific opportunity from this specific client is a good fit for them. And then we make 3 or 4 introductions to the client, different agencies, and we get out of the way. And from there, it is up to the client to decide if they want a second date with one of the agencies, right? So we're setting them up on the first date with 3 or 4 agencies that are qualified. And then if they love one of the agencies, talk to them again. If you don't love one of the agencies, don't. But it's great for the client because they get choices that are really qualified. And it's great for the agency because they connect with potential clients that they wouldn't meet otherwise.
And what happens if I'm a brand and I get set up with an agency and I don't like any of them?
It happens very rarely.
Okay.
We very rarely have that happen. But if that happens, we might suggest that we do a custom agency search where we run that RFI, RFP process and cast a much wider net of a pool of agencies. Because often when we do that, we start with a pool of 100, 150 agencies. We usually will send them a couple of RFI questions, request for information questions, the kinds of questions that they can answer in 10, 15 minutes, not the kinds that take them 3 days to answer.
Yeah.
And then we use the answers to those questions to narrow down to, let's call it 8 or 10 agencies that might get the RFP, which is a much more detailed and lengthy process than the RFI. So if somebody doesn't feel that they've got good choices when we make introductions, we can always help them in other ways. But we've usually found that often we can talk clients out of doing a really long, really expensive, burdensome RFP process, because at the end of the day, they want to get to 3 or 4 really qualified agencies so that they can make a choice. And we can get them there in a week or maybe 2 weeks for free. Or we can spend 3-4 months and tens of thousands of dollars to run a process. And most clients would prefer to work with us to help them connect with a handful of qualified agencies than go through that whole RFI process and RFP process.
If you can shave a few months off, and
it's
way more
free
efficient
for the client.
It's way better. So in looking at the business, if you could wave a magic wand and change or optimize one part of the business today, what would it be?
There's a lot of consolidation happening in the agency space, particularly where agencies are gobbling up other agencies. And I'm a big proponent of independent agencies that are not part of one of the massive holding companies. Nothing wrong with the holding companies, but I find that for most clients, they could benefit from having an independent agency where sometimes a client is at a holding company is the 27th most important client in their roster. And when that happens, that agency assigns them the C team of 23-year-olds working on your stuff. And the reality is, if you want to work with an agency that values your business, that cares about really your business and puts the appropriate resources on your account that are really going to help you grow. So if I go away with magic wand, I would stop some of the consolidation, and I want independent agencies to continue to thrive.
Okay. And then last question would be, is there something unique or different, or maybe just something that you think is great about what you do within your company that others listening might be able to take back and adopt into their business?
Yeah, well, so my brain works like one of those crime scene cork boards, where you have the red threads connecting the victim and the perp and I have this crazy ability to remember small tidbits about people and then pull them back off the shelf at an appropriate time to make an introduction or connection for them. And so that's why I'm writing the book, The Connector's Compass, is to help people who don't have that same brain mechanism that I seem to have. Somebody described it as I have a mental CRM in some ways, like, my it's like a Rolodex in my brain. And, to tell you a quick funny story related to that, I'm friends with a woman who's the head of marketing. She's the chief marketing officer of Kellogg's. And when she now Kellanova, which is their snack division that just sold. But when she first got that job, I asked her if she knew this guy who was the director of social media for Kellogg's. And I made introductions between the director of social media and the chief marketing officer. He reported into her, down the food chain. But like, sometimes you're connecting two people that are in the same company, and you don't make money off of that. That's about karma. That's about building and building relationships. So I don't know. I think learning how to make meaningful connections for others is that skill or talent that I think everybody should learn. And that's one of the reasons why I'm writing the book. Okay, that's great. I agree. I think making connections with Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
That's
Andrew.
okay.
I was just going to say, if you go to connectorscompassbook.com, you can sign up for the mailing list, and we'll notify you when we get closer to publication.
Awesome. Well, that's a good segue. I was going to say, before we wrap, where can folks go to learn more about Setup or you or the book? But it sounds like we got the book.
So the book, connectorscompassbook.com, but setup.us is our website. I did try to get setup.com, and I think it was going to be millions and millions of dollars.
Oh, sure.
Setup.us is great. But so setup.us is a great place to learn more about what Setup does, and you can reach out and contact us there at the contact page.
Awesome. All right. Joe, thank you so much for being here, man. Really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. I appreciate the time.
All right.